taking from the committee chairperson. By 3 p.m. today, they will proceed with an urgent court application. While the committee has not yet discussed the correspondence in committee, EWN understands that the matter was discussed during the lunch break. Matlala's lawyers state that his detention in the CMAX prison has negatively affected his health and mental capacity, and this is an issue which was also raised during his bail application. But committee member and Action SA MP Darylene James has taken to social media, accusing Matlala of using Stalingrad tactics to delay the committee, and MPs won't allow any attempt at delaying the hearing. Babalo Ndenze, Eyewitness News at the Kgosi Mampuru Correctional Centre in Pretoria.
Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts has made another attempt to implore former Road Accident Fund CEO Collins Letswalo to appear before it. After Letswalo failed to pitch in Parliament today to testify in Scopa's inquiry into the RAF, the committee contacted his lawyer once again, asking if he will show up tomorrow. Chairperson Songezo Zibi says Parliament wants to exhaust all avenues to persuade Letswalo to appear before deciding on any action against him for ignoring a summons to present himself. Lindsay has more.
After failing to arrive for a 9 a.m. meeting today, Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts decided to give Collins Letswalo until midday to arrive. This despite at least 2 legal letters to the committee explaining why he does not believe it has the jurisdiction to carry out an inquiry of this nature. Scopa launched the inquiry 2 months ago to probe maladministration at the fund under Letswalo's watch, which ended in August. Committee Chairperson Songezo Zibi says the committee has once again communicated with his attorney following today's no-show.
The committee will then take a decision after that correspondence from his attorneys has come. What we did ask him to do was to indicate to the committee whether Mr. Letswalo intends to come tomorrow or not, so that tomorrow the committee can have a discussion about what its next steps are going to be.
Some MPs have called for criminal steps to be taken against Letswalo for ignoring a parliamentary summons. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
Despite earlier tensions, South Africa has officially handed over the G20 presidency to the same lower-ranking official it refused to accommodate at the weekend. The two countries were at loggerheads this past weekend over the official handover, with South Africa refusing to give over reins to what they described as a junior diplomat. The International Relations Department says the handover happened this morning in Pretoria between diplomats of similar ranking. Thabiso Koba has more.
The White House initially announced it will be boycotting the G20 summit in South Africa, saying it will not be sending any of its representatives. However, during the event, it changed its tune and sent a junior delegation led by Chargé d'Affaires to receive the G20 presidency. A Chargé d'Affaires is a representative who heads a country's embassy mission in the absence of an ambassador. At the time, presidency spokesperson Vincent Magwenya posted on social media that President Cyril Ramaphosa would not hand over to a Chargé d'Affaires.
This is a breach of protocol, what they were suggesting. You cannot have a head of state handing over the presidency and the leadership of such an important premier forum for macroeconomic issues and other related issues being handed over to a junior embassy official.
The International Relations Department says the G20 presidency was exchanged between the two countries' diplomats successfully. Washington is currently without an ambassador to South Africa, with nominee Mike Bozell still awaiting Senate's confirmation. Thabiso Koba, Eyewitness News.
And the KwaZulu-Natal provincial government has made a call to all municipalities in the province to enforce bylaws that will prevent the building of informal settlements, especially in areas prone to disaster. The call comes after a number of homes in New Hanover under the Umshwati local municipality were destroyed by floods on Sunday. The Cooperative Governance Department, responsible for municipalities and disaster management, says stricter bylaws will curb the death of people during disasters. MEC Thulasizwe Buthelezi says all 54 KZN municipalities must adhere to this call.
The people where they have built, the municipality had not given permission for them to build there, but they built there in any case. Therefore, we are calling on municipalities across the province to enforce bylaws strictly, because that is what is going to save lives.
Buthelezi says their failure to implement bylaws is to blame for the deadly disasters.
It's very unfortunate that even the victims that we are talking about today is simply because people had built on areas which they were not supposed to build on.
In your financials, gold is trading at $4,124.54 an ounce. The rand is 17.25 to the dollar, 22.73 to the pound, and 19.96 to the euro. Brent crude is $61.75 a barrel.
In your sport, India sets a victory target of 549 runs as the Proteas stand on the brink of a Test series win. Orlando Pirates have an opportunity to move joint top of the Betway Premiership standings tonight. And Barcelona respond to backlash after Jerome Boateng visit.
A partly cloudy Wednesday is in store for Gauteng tomorrow with isolated showers and thundershowers expected. Johannesburg dropping to overnight lows of 10 degrees, peaking at 25. Pretoria 13 and 27. Vereeniging 16 and 26 degrees. Cape Town will be partly cloudy with a fresh south-southeasterly breeze at a low of 19 and a high of 28. The top story on Eyewitness News this hour. Attempted murder accused Vusimuzi Matlala wants his appearance before the Parliament Ad Hoc Committee this week postponed.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app. EWN Traffic.
Well, at this stage in Midrand heading towards Centurion, there's bumper-to-bumper traffic on the N1 northbound between New Road and Samrand, while in Polshof, traffic remains heavily backed up. This is on Witkoppen Road between Main and Stonehaven. Four ways traffic is also heavily backed up. This is on Winnie Mandela Drive between Main Road and Witkoppen, while in Ekurhuleni, Sunwood Park, Boksburg heading towards Brakpan. Roadwork slowing down traffic. This is on the N17 eastbound between Rondebolt and Carnival City. There's also bumper-to-bumper traffic through the Joburg CBD on the M1 southbound between Killarney Bends and the Crown Interchange, while in the Mother City, look out for those roadworks on the R300 northbound before Hindle Road. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072 702 1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud host of the Africa Impact Matters series podcast. ABSA is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. 8 minutes after 6. Good evening. Welcome to the program. I'm Stephen Grootes. Quite an interesting day in many ways. Pepcore results quite revealing about what's happening in our society around cell phones. I'll talk about that in a moment. Natasha Singh is the new head of the new large and international of the new large business forum at SARS. We'll talk to her about what they want to achieve with the new body in a moment. A lot coming around tourism. The SIU, as we were finishing the show last night, confirming that in fact they are now investigating allegations of maladministration at SA Tourism. You remember the backstory to this. The tourism minister, Patricia de Lille, kind of out of nowhere, firing the board. She said the board had not been meeting correctly. The board says, well, we were taking action against the CEO after the Auditor General made findings against her. That's a very complicated story, but certainly developments there. Mark Swilling, the professor, he's been talking a little bit about how you would reform our finance architecture to make sure there's money available for investment in infrastructure. It's fascinating. His whole point is we need infrastructure, we need the investment. We actually do have the money. It's about the way the money flows. Dr. Lafono Muluudzi's got some comments to make about how you would restructure boards of the Public Investment Corporation, other SOEs. I think that's an important conversation. And before 7 o'clock as well, Ramasela Gandas, the CEO at Zeda, they own Avis Budget. They run Avis Budget, they're massive fleet manager. There's been a lot of sort of information, data, numbers coming from Hotel Group saying their occupancies have been higher. Looks like something's going on in the tourism market as well. John Matham on Cape Talk was saying this afternoon, in fact, he's heard anecdotally that trying to rent a car in Cape Town is very, very difficult at the moment. I know it's incredibly hot in Cape Town as well, so just be very careful through that heat. Welcome to the show. It's 10 minutes after 6.
The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app
and DSTV channel 856.
So there was news today from Pepcore that they sold 13.5 million phoned handsets in the last financial year. And the vast majority of those are prepaid. They sell, I think, 80% of the prepaid handsets in South Africa. I mean, the numbers are astonishing. 13.5 million in 1 year. And it made me just wonder what's going on there. So we know that MTN and Vodacom have lost prepaid revenue. Telkom has increased prepaid revenue, and they've obviously done it through price. And if they've done it through price, is that encouraging this growth of sales of mobile phone handsets from Pepkor? And it led me to ask you this question. Are you on prepaid or are you on contract? And why? I've been on contract for a long time. I did go through about a 2-year period. I thought, let me try prepaid. It was fine. It worked. It did actually work out more cheaply. I dropped a phone, needed a new one. Do you need me to finish the story? I think you know the rest of the story. I felt I needed to go on a contract. About a year ago, I needed a new phone, and I do like a particular phone, and I don't like another particular phone. You can do your own guessing on that. And I realized that to buy the phone would make the handset roughly 1/3 cheaper than it would have been if I'd gone on contract. So I dipped into the bond and bought it. And I still have it. And that means what I pay for a contract, what I pay for a very small contract, is not very much at all. I would just like to know, why are you on prepaid or why are you on contract? 072 702 1702. You can feel free to tell us what kind of phone as well if you're particularly fond of it. Also 011 883 0702 and 021 446 0567.
The Money Show on 702.
Monday to Friday, 6 to 8 p.m.
Well, SARS now formally launching the Large Business Forum, expected to bring the country's largest corporate taxpayers together. It creates a sort of relationship model. The head of the forum is Natasha Singh, Director for Large and International Business at SARS. Natasha, good evening. I really do appreciate the time. What do you expect the forum to actually do? Why are you creating it now?
Good evening, Stephen, and thanks for having me on the show. So firstly, let me step back just to the establishment of the large business and international segment, which in itself is an international
Ket Matlala's lawyers say.
So based on the understanding that large businesses are the most significant contributors to the fiscus, and in SARS's case contributes about 1/3 of our total taxes collected by the organization, either directly or as an intermediary. And secondly, large businesses are unique given their geographical location, their sophistication, and tax compliance across various jurisdictions in which they operate. We therefore have a differentiated service offering and compliance model to suit this taxpayer segment. And just as large businesses contribute significant revenue, when large businesses do not comply, they also present the highest risk to the fiscus. So collectively, the model is relationship-led with a dedicated relationship manager as a single point of entry. Now, to add to this, the Large Business Forum, which was recently launched, is one of the many offerings in this segment that defines the differentiated service model that we are introducing and allows us an opportunity to engage proactively on matters of common interest on the unique issues that impact large business compliance. It's a strategic platform and one of many to come to enable mature, honest, and purposeful dialogue between SARS and senior leadership of our large businesses across various sectors.
Okay, I mean, it doesn't mean, I presume, yes, you'll talk more, but it doesn't change the way that you treat them. You're not going to treat a big company differently to how you treat Stephen, obviously. We have a completely different relationship, but it doesn't change what you actually get from them, is my point.
From SARS as a whole, SARS has introduced a segment model when it comes to taxpayers. So taxpayers do have different segments. For example, you have a high wealth individual segment, and like the large business segment, we have a different operating model in which we address our taxpayers.
Okay, no, that makes sense to me. Thank you. Are there particular compliance threats that you see from some of our biggest taxpayers? And you made the point about what happens and if they don't pay. And in fact, I think there have been 1 or 2 court cases that are quite interesting. I mean, that can have quite a big impact on the fiscus.
Yes, and this is what keeps us awake at night. Generally speaking, non-compliance has a serious impact on the fiscal and monetary policies of our country. And despite the significant progress that we've made, we still have a long way to go. And this is evidenced by the fact that not all revenue due is collected. We know this because of the existence of the significant tax gap. Not all trade is legitimate. We know this by the fact that illicit trade and tax evasion costs our economy billions annually. And we know that all taxpayers and traders are not always compliant. So whilst our theory of compliance tells us that most taxpayers are honest and simply want to meet their tax obligations with the least effort and cost, we know that there are some taxpayers who choose willfully not to comply and engage in harmful tax practices. From a large business perspective, the biggest compliance threat takes the form of base erosion and profit shifting. Deemed so because it creates a permanent loss of tax revenue and often involves shifting the taxable base from onshore to offshore or tax-shielded entities. The biggest themes we're seeing under BEPS include exotic structures and financing arrangements that lead to tax leakage. For example, the location of certain functions in low tax jurisdictions, share buyback transactions instead of straightforward dividends, and other international transactions that defy commercial reality. So businesses are not in the business of tax, but in the business of goods and services. And tax is supposed to just happen. However, if tax starts wagging the commercial tail of business, then transactions start to display these non-compliant and unusual features.
Natasha Singh, really appreciate the time. Thank you. Director for Large and International Business at SARS, 17 after 6.
702. Stephen is on X.
At Stephen Grootes.
Well, the former chair at SA Tourism, Opa Palani, calling for the Special Investigating Unit to probe what he says was political interference by the Tourism Minister Patricia de Lille at the body. The SIU confirmed last night it's received a proclamation from the President to investigate the organisation. Palani and the rest of the board were fired by de Lille. They had suspended the CEO, Nombulelo Galiwe, following adverse findings against her by the Auditor General. Well, Opa Palani, a former board member of SA Tourism, on the line now. Opa, good evening. What do you actually want the SIU to do here? How far must they go?
Thank you, Stephen, and good evening to your listeners. I actually must start by welcoming this proclamation. And we are saying this is long overdue, and it really needed to happen, and it needs to happen as quickly as possible. And I think what we are then happy about is that it will get into exactly what we were complaining about the competency of the suspended CEO, who at the time was the CFO when most of these transactions were happening. And we raised this matter sharply, but instead of us dealing with this matter, the minister chose to fire us.
There have been various court cases about this. The minister had to go to Parliament. She gave, as you would expect from Patricia de Lille, quite a strong defence. She says she's done nothing wrong. There's court action underway, I understand. I mean, all of this could take a very long time before we get to some kind of outcome.
Look, Stephen, at the end of the day, all of us must be held accountable. And it doesn't matter how long it takes. It is a question of principle if we want to save this country from political overreach. We've got to have men and women that are brave enough that can speak truth to the power. And this is exactly what this team of former board members is doing, because it is in the interest of the country not to allow politicians to run rogue.
What do you believe was actually going on? I mean, what I've never quite understood in all of this is on your version, de Lille was defending Goliwe. So the obvious question then would be why?
Well, that's what we want to know, all of us. Why? Because there were clear indications of maladministration. And it was not out of the findings of the board. It was the Auditor General. And the board went further to want to confirm such findings and appointed a forensic investigator. And it came and with clear recommendations of what needs to be done, also agreeing with the Auditor General. And those reports were given to the minister, who chose not to do anything, but instead when the board took action, because at the end of the day, it is the board that is held accountable. The authority rests with the board, not with the minister, when it comes to issues of SAT. So the board had to act, and then the minister then raised some serious excuses to why the board needed to be fired.
Opa Palani, thank you very much indeed. A former member of the board of SA Tourism.
702. Stephen is on The Money Show.
6 to 8 p.m.
One of the most common questions I think you'll ever hear on this show, on any other show on this radio station, is that we need more money for infrastructure and where will it come from? And in his medium-term budget policy statement, Enoch Godongwana, the finance minister, said government was trying to shift money from consumption to investment, but it boils down to the same question. where will the money come from? Well, Professor Mark Swilling is a member of the National Planning Commission, but also Professor of Urban Innovation at the Center for Sustainability Studies at Stellenbosch University, and I think we'll probably speak to him with that hat on about this. Mark, good evening. You suggest South Africa has the money. It's all about where the money flows, and from what you say, the money that we have has not been going into investments for the future, particularly for poorer people.
Yeah, I think that's basically true. We have, for the past 2 decades, every year committed ourselves to a massive infrastructure program of around $1 trillion, and every year we fall short. And it's not because of the fact that there isn't sufficient capital within the South African economy to fund this infrastructure. The shortage of funding is specific to the national budget, which is deemed to be maxed out. In other words, what is often referred to the absence of fiscal space. In other words, there's no more money to be spent from the national budget. Some people dispute that. But when you look at overall our financial system and where the money is located across all sectors, in other words, stop just looking at it as public finance versus private finance. Look at the financial system as a system and where the money is located. And what you will discover is that there's plenty of money building up, in particular in the private sector, which is not being invested in fixed assets, in particular infrastructure. And so the challenge is, how does that funding get unlocked?
How would you then sort of change that? I mean, a lot of it is pension money. It goes on to the JSE. Maybe it explains why the JSE is looking so good while the rest of the economy isn't. It's quite a difficult flow to change, isn't it?
It is a difficult flow to change because there's a lot of vested interests. But I think the primary blockage is conceptual. I don't think we have an adequate theory of finance in South Africa, and therefore we don't have a methodology to fix the problem. So if I can give a particular example, the way infrastructure used to be funded, government would issue bonds. Institutional investors like pension funds would buy the bonds. Government would then spend the money on infrastructure in order to grow the economy. The economy would grow, revenues into government would increase tax revenues, and then the bonds would then be serviced, and the investors would get their money back. That was the kind of lazy way in which infrastructure funding was coordinated. However, with state capture and the weakening, or what the medium-term budget statement referred to as the weakness of the state, there's a loss of confidence in that traditional system. So there has to be a workaround. So just to give one example, when I was at the DBSA, we set up the infrastructure fund. The infrastructure fund is a fund that is supposed to take 100 billion from the fiscus in order to leverage 900 billion from institutional investors to create a 1 trillion rand fund to invest in infrastructure. That's an example of a workaround, and it may not have it's not as fully successful as it should be, although I think it's definitely making considerable progress. But it's the kind of thing that the institutional investors and government and the development finance institutions should be getting around a table and figuring out new additional mechanisms like that in order to fund infrastructure and unlock capital.
It's interesting because a loss of confidence is also the reason given for why companies, and this is also hugely contested, are sitting on so much cash and not investing it. I mean, it really tells you about what this issue actually is, and it's been like this for a long time.
Yes. Well, I mean, you have two problems resulting in the buildup of cash. The one is, as the state-owned enterprises, which is 30% of our GDP, weakened and got hollowed out, private sector investments in the SOEs basically dried up. So that would have been money that goes into infrastructure if the SOEs were still okay. So that's one area of so where's that money going? And the other is exactly what you're saying. If you look at the numbers, private companies are not investing significant parts of their profits in expansion. They are essentially investing in replacement rather than expansion, because there is because of the levels of uncertainty, there is a reluctance to sink money into fixed assets that are going to generate a return over 20, 30 years. Amongst institutional investors, there's a growing pressure from households, for example, to increase liquidity. In other words, make more money available to float around and less money going into fixed because of uncertainty. So uncertainty and the lack of trust is underpinning. Now, you don't sit back and say, well, let's wait for governance to get fixed. Oh, let's build trust and then we're going to invest. No, you build trust and therefore greater certainty by collaborating and co-creating the institutions that need to be built to redirect capital flows where it needs to go. For example, if you want to build the middle class and you want to halt the shrinkage of the middle class, which is what we're seeing, you have to get cash into the small businesses. There's 700,000 small businesses that are cash starved, that create more jobs than large businesses and are responsible for more value add. And yet they are cash starved. So we have these financial institutions which are very profitable, some of the most profitable banks in the world, that can't figure out how to get sufficient capital into small businesses. Come on,
Sure.
Surely we can do better than that.
Professor Mark Swilling, thank you. Really good to hear from you. He is a commissioner at the National Planning Commission, but academically a professor of urban innovation at the Centre for Sustainability Studies at the University of Stellenbosch.
The Money Show.
The markets.
Ryan Hill is head of fundamental sales at Absa CIB. Ryan, good evening. A strong update from Pepkor. They're selling literally millions of phone handsets and they're getting into banking.
Yeah, evening, Stephen. And interestingly, the share actually closed down about 1.5%, though, and that's primarily because of the fact that if you look at their most recent trading update for the last couple of weeks, it's been meaningfully softer than the same period last year. But to your earlier point, I mean, the numbers on the surface looked pretty decent. Operating profit up 14%. And one of the star performers in the business was, of course, the fintech operation, which includes their financial services business. They saw their operating profit go up by close to 30%. So, to your point earlier, they indicated also that they've made progress toward getting a banking license with the Prudential Authority, which, of course, is part of a broader strategic journey that they're undertaking to deepen the ecosystem and to increase the monetizing of the customer engagements that they've got in place.
And then Zeda's results out, their own Avison budget. There seem to be more people using more rental cars more often.
Definitely, probably part of the sort of growing tourism volumes that we see coming through here, and of course, just the overall economy showing just perhaps some very early green shoots, possibly. I remain hopeful as ever. So that stock closed up 11%. The results were slightly ahead of our forecast, so maybe the market's reaction was a function of very low liquidity in the stock. But I think the other attractive story that played out there today was, of course, the fact that their dividend came in at about 50% of their earnings. So clearly the market very cheered by that.
And then lots of talk about a deal coming really from Washington about Russia and Ukraine to sort of end the Russia-Ukraine conflict, even though there's quite a few suggestions that it's very much a Russian plan.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. As of now, I still haven't seen any specific commentary from the Russians per se. As I understood this initial announcement, it was largely the US that appeared to convince Ukraine to accept the peace proposal, which the market initially took as quite positive. Basically, the oil price fell, Brent oil prices fell. You saw the dollar weaken a bit. S&P futures hit session highs. But again, I think until we've got sort of formal comment from Russia, perhaps the market's likely to take a more cautious view on this over the course of the next couple of days. And of course, the important question is what kind of precedent does this set, right? I mean, if Russia's got essentially sort of permission to move geopolitically within Eastern Europe and then, ultimately can ask for forgiveness afterward, that might not be a great outcome for the rest of Europe after all.
Ryan Hill, thank you. Head of Fundamental Sales at ABSA CIB. Just after 6:30. Zingisa, good evening. Time for the latest eyewitness news. The Deputy President talking about gang violence. Well, Zingisa will be with us in just a second. Hitting the computer as hard as she can. I think it clearly deserves it. I think give it another go. Have a seat, Zingisa. Take your time. Don't worry. I know the feeling. These things happen. And we could blame Zingisa, but that would be wrong because it would be the computer that is completely at fault. And we'll have to investigate the malfunction. I'm sure AI is responsible at some point for that. You know how these things can happen. And they have happened, of course, to the best of us as well. So here we go. Zingisa, the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile. Good evening.
Well, it is human error, but yes, the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, says the fight against gang violence must be intelligence-driven. He says communities also have a major role to play in helping to fish out those causing a reign of terror in their neighborhoods. Today's MPs once again questioned government about its approach to stem the violence, particularly in the Western Cape. Answering questions in the National Council of Provinces, Mashatile said government recognizes the trauma gang violence is causing in many communities. Lindsay Datelinger reports.
Deputy President Paul Mashatile says government is addressing the systemic weaknesses in policing and the justice cluster that are hindering the arrest of those responsible for gang violence. He says the SAPS has already begun implementing its latest anti-gang strategy in the Western Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, the Eastern Cape and Gauteng.
Government is investing in an integrated, intelligence-driven approach. This strategy will ensure that gangs and criminal networks are investigated, neutralized, and dismantled.
But the DA's Nicholas Gottsal claimed the SAPS is shunning investigative and intelligence capacity from the City of Cape Town's Metro Police.
This means that your government is turning away real help while communities on the Cape Flats are slaughtered.
Mashatile has promised to look into the matter. He says while there are protocols that need to be followed, all help is needed to fight the gangsterism scourge. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
Evidence of pinging cell phone records and the testimony of an accused turned state witness were all used in court today to implicate alleged underworld gang boss Nafis Modak in the attempted murder of prominent attorney William Booth. The prosecution team is close to wrapping up its cross-examination of Modak related to an attempt on Booth's life 5 years ago. The incident forms part of the 122 charges Modak and his 14 co-accused face on the Western Cape High Court. Carla Peterson was there.
State Prosecutor Greg Wolmerans today showed the court how attorney William Booth was pinged by co-accused Zane Killian. Killian swore under oath it was Modak who instructed him to track the whereabouts of Booth. Wolmerans also used cell phone evidence to show how 3 of Modak's co-accused, including his bodyguard Ziad Pool, were in constant communication up until the attempt on Booth's life on the 9th of April 2020. A former accused turned state witness also testified he was the driver for the shooting, implicating Pool, Taufik Brown and Rihad Ghassan for being involved.
And I'm going to argue that the reason there is this cooperation, this alignment of the behavior, is because they have the same boss, you.
Modak is due back in the witness box for his cross-examination to continue tomorrow. Carlo Peterson, Eyewitness News, Western Cape High Court.
And the KwaZulu-Natal provincial government has made a call to all municipalities in the province to enforce bylaws that will prevent the building of informal settlements, especially in areas prone to disaster. The call comes after a number of homes in New Hanover under the Umshwati local municipality were destroyed by floods on Sunday. The Cooperative Governance Department, responsible for municipalities and disaster management, says stricter bylaws will curb the death of people during disasters. MEC Thulasizwe Buthelezi says all 54 KZN municipalities must adhere to the call.
The people where they have built, the municipality had not given permission for them to build there, but they built there in any case. Therefore, we are calling on municipalities across the province to enforce bylaws strictly, because that is what is going to save lives.
Buthelezi says their failure to implement bylaws is to blame for deadly disasters.
It's very unfortunate that even the victims that we are talking about today is simply because people had built on areas which they were not supposed to build on.
In your weather, a partly cloudy Wednesday is in store for Gauteng tomorrow with isolated showers and thundershowers expected. Lows of between 10 and 16 degrees and highs of between 25 and 27. Cape Town will be partly cloudy at a low of 19 and a high of 28. The top story in EWN this hour, Deputy President Paul Mashatile says the fight against gang violence must be intelligence-driven.
EWN Traffic.
Well, at the moment, if you're heading towards Pretoria, you can expect delays in Tembisa on the R21 northbound between the R25 Paffontein off-ramp and Olifantsfontein Road. Also, in Midrand, heading towards Centurion, there's bumper traffic N1 northbound between the Patlu Interchange and the New Road, while in Fourways, expect some delays on Winnie Mandela Drive between Witkoppen and the N1. There's also slow-moving traffic through the Joburg CBD. That's the M1 southbound between Killarney Bends and the Crown Interchange, while in the Mother City, roadwork slowing down traffic. This is on the R300 northbound approaching Hindle Road. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Beyond every boardroom is a story waiting to be written. A story of a business and its potential, of a community that thrives, a hospital that serves, and energy that powers millions of dreams. It's a story that only gets better with a partner that has the expertise and solutions to make it a reality. At ABSA CIB, we are invested in your story, and we invite you to write it with us, because your story matters. ABSA, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Business doesn't stop when you step out of the office, and neither should your connection. Turn on mobility with Telkom Business. Get the Oppo Reno 12F smartphone with 50 gigs of additional data once off on Telkom Flex on 2. Was 429 Rand per month, now 369 Rand per month over 36 months. That's a total saving of 2,160 Rand.
This Black Friday, your business deserves the best. Visit telkom.co.za/business. T's and C's apply. Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
702 and the Dis-Chem Foundation are shining the spotlight on the health matters you want to know more about. Here's what we explored this month.
What I've experienced working with young people is the massive lack of father figures is actually playing out in a specific way.
So where do we start?
The younger you can get these kids, the more easy and deceptive they are. Also, on the other side, in sports teams, there's always been this culture of initiation. If we have to look back in Molliton, with those boys. So it's almost like sick masculinity that just keeps on repeating itself. Hence, the boys are actually doing what they're doing. If we can get that out of teams, then we can actually nip it in the bud.
In Conversation on Afternoon Drive with John Perlman. Brought to you by the Dis-Chem Foundation, caring for the community on 702.
WhatsApp Stephen
On 072
702
1702.
I was asking you earlier, are you on a prepaid phone or a contract phone, and why? That's after Pepcor told us they sold 13.5 million handsets, most of them prepaid, last year. I'm on contract for the moment. I have been on prepaid before. I am on contract, but I did buy the handset myself because it was just cheaper once I'd worked it all out. Voice notes this evening.
Hi, Stephen. I'm on contract because it ultimately costs me less than being on prepaid. And I also like the choice of the upgrades. It's Kevin from Aldersdrift.
Kevin, thank you. I mean, I know some people who end up with upgrades where they get sort of two phones because they've just been on the contract for so long. They also don't necessarily use them that much. I do find it very, very interesting, one way or another, how that goes. Your views, 072 702 1702, contract or prepaid, and why?
EWN Sport.
Tolekele, good evening. Just know it could still rain. So there'll be no on the brink of or series victory or any of that. Proteas are in a relatively strong position.
I might have that phrase in my bulletin now. I might have to rethink it. While Stephen, India reached Thompson Day for the second test on 27 for the loss of 2, still needing an unlikely 522 more runs for victory.
Very good.
I'm sorry.
Unlikely. It is unlikely.
Very
What
unlikely.
do they say? What's it? They get to the highest run chase ever in a fourth innings.
Yes. Yes,
That's
pretty
the
much.
way. Yeah.
Earlier, Tristan Stubbs scored 94 as the Proteas declared their second innings on 260 for 5. That's to set India a record victory target of 549. The Proteas kept on batting despite the lead crossing 500 in the second session, and Shukri Conrad said they wanted to make sure they ended India's hopes of a series-leveling win.
The bowlers spent a lot of time out there. We saw the effects of batting for 2 full days in the first innings and what sort of effect it had on them. It's never going to be easy for the opening batters to come this evening, especially new ball, shadows across the wicket. We felt we could have struck there. So if tomorrow evening it comes that we have them 8 down and people say, well, see, told you so, we've got to base it on our sound judgment, and if that doesn't work out, well, it doesn't, but I don't think there's a right and wrong in any of this.
In the UEFA Champions League, match day 5 gets underway tonight, and the pick of the tie sees Chelsea at home to Barcelona. Hansi Flick has praised the work Enzo Maresca has done with the Blues.
It's one of the best teams also in the world. It's the evolution here in the club, the change in the club. It's very fantastic. There's a lot of young players, a fantastic coach who give them an identity to play football. It's very great to see. Every match I see, I really appreciate about that, what they are doing. And young team with exceptional players, and for us, it's a really good match, good game.
Keeping with the Catalans, they say they're fully committed to combating gender-based violence following a visit to the club by Jerome Boateng. Boateng was handed a suspended €200 fine and a warning by a Munich court last year. That's after he was found guilty of premeditated bodily harm against his former partner. The visit came days before the club held a minute's silence before Saturday's La Liga game in memory of women killed by male violence to mark the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And Player of the Year Malcolm Marx is one of 6 South Africans in World Rugby's Dream Team. That follows another successful year for Rassie Erasmus' World Champions. Teammates Peter Steph du Toit, Oxen Chair, Thomas du Toit, Sasa Feinberg Mgomezulu, and Cheslin Colby have also been named in the 15. In total, 7 nations are represented in the Team of the Year. Tolagele Mganga, Eyewitness News Sport.
Let's count backward. 5. Insurance. 4. Pineapple. 3. Insurance. 2. Pineapple. 1. You're under. Pineapple FSP 48650 is underwritten by Omart Insure Limited, a licensed non-life insurer and authorized FSP.
Mate bro, just left Discam and I can confidently say I found the perfect spot for Black Friday. Yo, all the deals, all the feels, yeah, all in one place. This new Discam Better Rewards card, brilliant. You can save big time on over 140 Better Rewards brands. That's 10% off instantly on top of promo prices. Do yourself a favor, become a member, fill your basket, and make that amazing deals till slip longer than Ikuyase Home Affairs. Anyways, catch you later, bro. Black Friday just got lacquer.
Small businesses are anything but small. They're the backbone of our communities, the dreamers, the doers, the ones who keep Mzansi moving forward. That's why 702 and Capitec Business Banking are putting them in the spotlight. Every Thursday between 6 and 8 p.m., catch Small Business Focus with Capitec, where we showcase the hustle, heart, and the secrets to thriving in today's economy. Your vision matters, and with Capitec, you're never building it alone. Small Business Focus with Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Thursdays between 6 and 8 p.m. on 702. Capitec Bank is an authorized FSP 46669.
The Money Show
With Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
and DSTV channel 856.
Just gone 7:15. Well, over the last few months, you'll have heard several reports about the situation at the Public Investment Corporation. Its chief investment officer is on suspension. There's a relatively new CEO. There's still questions about how it's making decisions in the unlisted space. Look at the, I suppose, disaster that was Daybreak Farms. There's a lot less transparency in the unlisted space, of course. And in the middle of this, a call from a former board member of the PIC for there to be, I suppose, what you'd call a major change in how boards of organizations like the PIC, SOEs more generally, would be constituted. Dr. Lufuno Muludzi is a former president of the Public Servants Association, also a former non-executive director at the PIC, so a former board member there. Lufuno, good evening. I really appreciate you coming in. You say the current system basically gives a cabinet minister too much power, give them carte blanche to do whatever they want with the board. What do you believe we should change?
Good evening, Stephen, and thank you for having me. I think the current legal framework gives the ministers powers that they cannot account for. They do as they wish, and then and patronage become the center of what they decide to do with regard to the appointments of people in the board of these SOEs. I'll talk specifically about where I was the non-executive director at the PIC. When we were appointed in 2021, you'll remember, Steve, it was a post-Mpati Commission of Inquiry. And then when we came in, the mandate was to implement the recommendations of the Mpati Commission and to stabilize the PIC. We came in, the PIC was sitting at, I think, between 2 trillion of asset under management. Then we managed to take the PIC to 3.5 trillion by the time we were removed. So you could see, Uri, if appointments are based on performance.
Well, hold on, because the PIC will always get bigger because more government workers are putting more money into it. So I don't know how far we go down that road. What I am more interested in is, as I understand it, a cabinet minister, which is a democratic authority. So in other words, you need to have a person from the people, right? So that person makes appointments to a board of an SOE or the PIC or whatever. And once they're there, those people are supposed to govern in the best interests of the organization. That's what, and then they appoint a CEO and the executive. In your view, what's actually happening?
Let's talk about the CEO. The CEO is appointed by the board. By the time we left, we just appointed the new CEO. Who is there now. I think he started on the 1st of July. And then we make appointments and send our recommendation to the minister. And the minister obviously have to send that to cabinet for approval. And then that happened. So with the board, what happened was our term of office ended on the 31st of October. I think it's end of October last year. When it ended, one would think that before the term end, the minister must make a decision whether to reappoint or not appoint those who are there based on their performance. On the 31st of October, the minister didn't appoint. What he did on the 12th of September, he wrote a letter to the chairperson of the board that the PIC board must submit all the names of the current board members or those who were board members then, so that he can make a decision on reappointment or appointing new people. And then in that letter, there was a 30 days time frame. So what happened, to be short, that happened, all of us, we submitted, and we felt...
I'm just going to stop you there. We're not going to get into the technicalities of this. We need to focus on the point. The point is that you believe the people who are appointed to SOEs should be more independent than they currently are. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. What I'm saying, people who are appointed to the SOEs must be independent. But the point is not people who are appointed. The point is the act giving the prerogative to appoint board members to SOEs, to the ministers. Because when you have a sole person having that authority and no one is holding that person to account, then it allows a situation where people abuse their powers.
It's state capture. It's what happened at the NEL.
Yes,
it's what happened at Transnet and SA.
Hence I said in the article that I wrote that the president must make sure that he implement the Zondo Commission recommendation on state-owned entities appointment as they are, whereby you have a commission that is tasked to appoint people to these boards and submit names to the minister. What the ministers must do is to submit those names appointed by the commission to the cabinet, for the cabinet to make a final approval and make a thorough scrutiny of those that were are sent to them by the minister. So in essence, I'm saying remove the powers from one person, because Stephen, you have seen even in the SITA that when you have ministers having powers, obviously patronage will become the order of the day.
The question that would follow is who appoints the people to the commission? And the people appointed to the commission would also be appointed by a political appointee. So I don't know if you fix the problem.
Obviously, the people who can be appointed to the commission must be appointed by the president. Obviously, the president is a politician as well. But if you have got a number of people making decisions, obviously you'll have a situation where the process will be fair. You won't have a decision where you have people just being removed for no reason. Because if you look at what happened at PIC, the issue of continuity, experience, institutional memory was not looked at by the minister when he make a decision. And what is very, very concerning is that from October last year, he subjected us to 3 performance assessments.
Okay, we've heard you. Thank you very much indeed. Dr. Lufuna Mulodzi is a former president of the Public Servants Association and a former non-executive director of the PIC. It's 8 minutes to 7. In a moment, Ramasela Ganda, the CEO of Zeda.
This festive, turn your family meetings into family eatings with the Nando's Festive Fill-Up Meal. A full flame grilled chicken, 2 sharing sides, 4 cheesy rissoles, 2 Cabo Societies, 2 Nando's rolls, and a 1.5-liter Coca-Cola for only $3.99 to enjoy at your place. And if your family meeting is at our place, get 40 Rand off. Nando's. Oh, what a place.
My boy, a father now. Another generation on this farm. Maybe we should expand.
We could leverage the farm. Add a residential estate. It'll pay itself off easily, so they'll be cared for even when you're gone. If it's on your mind, it's on ours. Partner with a wealth banker who will connect you to structured lending solutions for wealth that supports generations to come. See money differently. Nedbank Private Wealth. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
You've heard the songs, but until you've seen it live, you haven't experienced the magic of cats. Coming to Monte Casino from 17 January until 22 February, it's the memory shared by millions. Book now at Web Tickets. Brought to you by Peter Turin and GWB Entertainment.
The Money Show, Stephen Grootes, is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud host of the Africa Impact Matters series podcast. ABSA is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
6 minutes to 7. Well, the vehicle and fleet operator Zeda, the owners of Avis Budget in South Africa, saying their profit was up by nearly 4%, their revenue up just 1.7% in the year to the end of September. A lot more money coming through from leasing vehicles, but not getting as much value for cars that they're actually on selling after they've used them in the rental fleet. Ramasela Ganda is the CEO of Zeda Limited. Ramasela, good evening. Your leasing segment, where people rent cars for longer periods, that seems to have been up quite dramatically. What drove that growth?
Thank you very much, Stephen, for having me. This is a product that we've always had. As Zeda, we say we drive usership economy. We want to change the way people utilize the vehicle. And we have seen, a change where people are not committed to a vehicle and committed to a long-term installment sale agreement. This is really what we're doing. We're closing in the market. We're saying have access to mobility, but without the obligation of really having it for a long time. And that is what is coming. It's very agile. It's priced very well. and we see it resonates with the market. And that is a product that we're saying the market has been looking for, and we're seeing the benefit of it.
Is it individuals or companies that are doing it?
It's combination. We've got public sector customer in it. We've got corporate SA in it. We've got individual, but in the main, we've got a lot of individuals, that gets into that product. But that is a product that, it's not just giving the individual. You don't have to worry about the insurance, tire damage, all kinds of things. Whenever you want to change the vehicle, you can bring it back. And that's the flexibility that comes with the product.
In your rental segment, the Avis Budget brand, so your fleet utilization was up. We're seeing a lot more activity in our hotels. Was there a lot more demand for your cars? Do you know where it was coming from?
Look, our business is always seasonal except for the subscription, and that's the reason why we introduced subscription, that the traditional car rental is very predictable and high rate. Now we're getting into the December season, and that December season, you can imagine places like Cape Town, inbound going into that market, will be out of stock in December, no doubt about it. Doesn't matter how many vehicles we put into that. And also we see that as much as many people with regard to local leisure, they go to Cape Town, but there's still a lot of consumers still staying behind in the GP, and KZN has picked up very nicely. We had a low season during the flood and the aftermath of everything, but KZN is looking very strong. So local consumer can go to KZN tourism, and we still have the Gauteng still consuming in Gauteng.
I mean, one of the big hotel groups was talking up KZN last week. I realize they have a big property there, but you say you are seeing growth. Is it South Africans going to eThekwini and Durban, or is it actually people from outside the country?
Mostly local. Local South Africans are really going to KZN, and even our. We do long-term bookings. South Africans don't book long-term, but when it comes to KZN, for whatever reason, we can see that long lead time of booking going that direction.
Maybe there's, I don't know, a spate of weddings or something.
And a good weather.
Yes,
right?
That helps. And a warm sea. I could go on.
Yep.
The cars that you use, you sell them on when you finish. The resale value of the cars, it seems you're not getting as much for them. That's forcing you to use them for longer, which I imagine pushes their value down further. Are you suffering from what other companies are suffering from in the second-hand market? Is this about cheaper, new Chinese models?
Look, actually, to the contrary. I mean, we had our own principle and traditional way of keeping the vehicle for a year, and we had to ask ourselves, with all this evolution about the Chinese market coming in, that we're competing with a 1-year-old, we're competing with a brand new car because our car was just 1 year old. What will it do to our business? And understanding the market, by just extending it by a couple of months, we're yielding even better returns. So very interesting that if you sell a 12-month-old today, you're not going to get better return, but if you sell a vehicle that has got better, longer period, to get good residual value. So it's just about the sweet spot of when you dispose of that vehicle. And I think because we're the largest buyer of the vehicle, we could see the prices we are getting this vehicle, and we were saying at this level of buying the vehicle, there's no way we'll be able to compete with this Chinese model in a year's time. So keep it longer for a couple of months, between 18 months, 24, and you really come out of it even stronger. And that has been strategy and tactics that have paid very well.
I mean, what will surely happen is that cheaper new cars will create opportunities for competitors to try and undercut you on price.
Look, when it comes to the car sales, definitely that was the thing, and that's why we postponed the disposal in the first half.
No, sure, but I mean on the rental.
Oh, no. Rentals, we are already in those cheaper cars, but the only difference about it is because we have different ways of financing it, whether we take it on lease or we take it in the balance sheet. And you take it on the balance sheet if you want to take a residual value risk, if you can guarantee that you'll gain that. And we've managed to negotiate good lease contract on it, that we will have it on our rental stock, but we're not sure about the resale value at the moment, so we never... most of them are not on our balance sheet, but we have them on our rental stock. If you want to get any Chinese car, you will get it.
Ramasela, thanks very much indeed. Really appreciate the time. Ramasela Ganda is the CEO at Zeda Limited. You're with The Money Show, 7 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good evening, I'm Zingisa Chirwa. Attempted murder accused Vusimuzi Matlala wants his appearance before Parliament's ad hoc committee this week postponed. Matlala's lawyers say their client is not prepared for the appearance and have requested additional time before giving evidence to the ad hoc committee investigating allegations of police corruption and interference. Matlala is set to appear before the committee this week at the Hosimampuru Correctional Facility in Pretoria, where he is currently incarcerated. Babalondenze reports from the Hosimampuru Correctional Centre in Pretoria.
Ket Matlala's lawyers say their client is not ready to give evidence just yet and want more time to consult with him. They also gave the committee an ultimatum, saying should they not receive a response and written undertaking from the committee chairperson by 3 p.m. today, they will proceed with an urgent court application. While the committee has not yet discussed the correspondence in committee, EWN understands that the matter was discussed during the lunch break. Matlala's lawyers state that his detention in a CMAX prison has negatively affected his health and mental capacity, and this is an issue which was also raised during his bail application. But committee member and Action SA MP Darylene James has taken to social media, accusing Matlala of using Stalingrad tactics to delay the committee, and MPs won't allow any attempt at delaying the hearing. Babalondenze, Eyewitness News at the Hosimampuru Correctional Centre in Pretoria.
Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts has made another attempt to implore former Road Accident Fund CEO Collins Letswalo to appear before it. After Letswalo failed to pitch in Parliament today to testify in Scopa's inquiry into the RAF, the committee contracted his lawyer once again, asking if he'll show up tomorrow. Chairperson Songezo Zibi says Parliament wants to exhaust all avenues to persuade Letswalo to appear before deciding on any action against him for ignoring a summons to present himself. Lindsay Datelinger has more.
After failing to arrive for a 9 a.m. meeting today, Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts decided to give Collins Letswalo until midday to arrive. This despite at least 2 legal letters to the committee explaining why he does not believe it has the jurisdiction to carry out an inquiry of this nature. Scopa launched the inquiry 2 months ago to probe maladministration at the fund under Letswalo's watch, which ended in August. Committee Chairperson Zongezo Zibi says the committee has once again communicated with his attorney following today's no-show.
The committee will then take a decision after that correspondence from his attorneys has come. What we did ask him to do was to indicate to the committee whether Mr. Letswalo intends to come tomorrow or not, so that tomorrow the committee can have a discussion about what its next steps are going to be.
Some MPs have called for criminal steps to be taken against Letswalo for ignoring a parliamentary summons. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
The latest data from the judiciary has revealed that more accused persons in the country's courts are requesting psychiatric evaluation. Chief Justice Mandisa Maya delivered the annual judiciary reports for the 2023-24 and 24-25 financial years. Maya says South Africa's judiciary is under strain, contending with issues including failing infrastructure and not enough judges. Khomotso Modise has more.
The number of mental health applications and how quickly they are processed has been included in the latest judiciary reports as a measure of efficiency in the country's high courts. According to the report, over 6,600 applications for psychiatric evaluation were made by accused in the 2023-2024 financial year, and that number rose to over 7,900 in the following year. More than half of those applications were made in the High Court in Cape Town, and the court managed to finalize 98% of them during the year 2024-2025. However, no applications for psychiatric evaluation were made in Mpumalanga and Limpopo High Courts. Mental health evaluations are often requested by accused to determine their fitness to stand trial. Khomotso Modise, Eyewitness News.
And Western Cape transport officials have expressed deep concern at the spike in drunk driving incidents following the arrest of 24 drunk drivers this past week. As the busy festive season approaches, provincial traffic authorities say they've issued more than 9,000 fines at various roadblocks, including 200 speeding fines. Provincial Traffic's Maxine Poseidonost is urging motorists to act responsibly and respect the law.
The high number of drunk driving arrests is deeply concerning. Even small amounts of alcohol can impede judgment and slow reaction times. Our officers will continue to take firm action against anyone who chooses to endanger others by driving under the influence.
In your financials, gold is trading at $4,124.54 an ounce. The rand is 17.25 to the dollar, 22.73 to the pound, and 19.96 to the euro. Brent crude is $61.75 a barrel.
Protea Glen, Soweto, we still have bumper traffic. That's the N12 westbound between the R554 Abu Bakr Drive and the R558. Heading into Lerato Kagiso area, there's slow-moving traffic. This is on Randfontein Road between Adcock and Corlett, while in the Mother City roadwork, slowing down traffic on the R300 northbound, heading towards Hindle Road.
A partly cloudy Wednesday is in store for Gauteng tomorrow, with isolated showers and thundershowers expected. Johannesburg drops to overnight lows of 10 degrees, peaking at 25. Pretoria 13 and 27. Vereeniging 16 and 26. Cape Town will be partly cloudy with a fresh south-southeasterly breeze at a low of 19 and a high of 28. The top story on Eyewitness News this hour. An attempted murder accused Vusimuzi Ketmatlala wants his appearance before the Parliament's ad hoc committee this week postponed.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud host of the Africa Impact Matters series podcast. ABSA is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. 7 minutes after 7. Lots to come. Still taking your WhatsApps about your WhatsApp voice notes, your calls about whether you're on a prepaid phone or a contract phone and why. We'll talk to Tsepo Nsane, the RMB Finance and ESG transactor. I mean, it almost got lost, but COP ended just as something else was starting. I forget what the something else is last week, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. Rotendo Ndingwi is here, the founding director at Tribe Africa Advisory. Here's a story about a massive emerald that I don't quite believe, but I mean, it's an amazing story. And Warren Ingram, if we're having some good times, if things are going right, where do you put your money? A really interesting question. Your calls, as always, on 011 883 0702 021 446 0567.
WhatsApp Stephen
on 072
702
1702.
If you were listening on 702 earlier, you would have heard John Perlman talking to Zongezo Zibi, who, among other things, is the chair of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts. And they were talking about the fact that Collins Letswalo, the former CEO at the Road Accident Fund, failed to arrive for his parliamentary hearing today. A subpoena had been issued. The sheriff had gone to all of his sort of legally registered addresses, no sign of him. Then they went to Parliament. Parliament tried to get hold of him through other means, no luck there, and he didn't come. And I'm going to say, and the reason I'm going to say what I'm about to say is because I saw him so often doing interview after interview, claiming that he had done nothing wrong. And when we see evidence that someone behaved like a bully and bullied other members of the Road Accident Fund, other workers, when he had the power, and now runs away and refuses to answer questions, the most cowardly behavior that I can imagine. So when you have the power, you're incredibly, you use that power to bully. And when you don't have the power, you run away like a coward. I mean, how else would we term this behavior? Collins Letswalo, you're behaving like a coward. Come and testify. Answer the questions.
702. Stephen is on X
at Stephen Grootes.
Voice notes coming through. Are you on prepaid or are you on contract?
Hey, Stephen, Bruce here from Cape Town. The last time I took out a cell phone contract would have been around about 1998. Since about 2001, I have been on this same cell number on prepaid. 55 rands of airtime will last me a very long time. I'll hardly ever have to make calls, as I do have an office desk phone and I have a home landline. But when I am at home and I need to phone anybody, it will typically be a WhatsApp call. When I am out and about, I tend not to accept WhatsApp calls from people if it's some sort of a person I don't know, unless it's going to be a short and sharp one, because it's going to be my data that's going to be consumed. In terms of data-wise, I take out a 12-month package. It gives me, I think for 600 Rand, it gives me 1 gig a month for 12 months, and that's on Vodacom. So, and my handset tends to be used for about 5 years. So I know they talk about upgrades and all that. I don't believe in upgrades. I believe that all those cell phone contracts is you just paying HP on that device. There's nothing really. You're paying for that phone. I'd rather pay for it cash, and I save on everything else by just doing my prepaid airtime. Like I said, 55 Rand lasts me months.
Sure. Yeah, interesting. Using it in a very, very careful way. And it can. Okay, very interesting use of a cell phone. Thank you. 11 after 7.
702.
702.
Stephen is on the Money Show.
6 to 8 p.m.
Well, just as the G20 was starting last weekend, the COP30 was finishing in Belém in Brazil. Tsepo Nsane is a finance and ESG transactor at RMB. Tsepo, thanks for coming in. Good evening. Good to see you again. Did we make much progress? I mean, there's been a lot of talk about climate. We realize there's an economy that doesn't want to talk about it. Did we make much progress in Belém?
Even in Stephen, I think we did. And the question is always, what was the expectation going into this COP? So a lot of people expected like big announcements and stuff like that. But if you look at COP typically, there is slow progress being made. And we did have some commitments coming through. We did see water now being classified as a cornerstone for climate change. And we did see a lot of announcements coming through typically. Yes, some stuff that we're expecting didn't come through, but a lot of progress was achieved.
I mean, it can be difficult to know. Something that looks small and innocuous in an event like this can actually just change the trajectory by 10% over 100 years. That's what you needed to do. Part of this, they're called nationally determined contributions. This is about what countries actually do.
Exactly.
Was there progress there?
I think there was a lot of progress there because there was a requirement this year for countries to update and revise their plans because the current plans go up to 2025 and 2030. So there's a requirement to now provide 2035 plans. So what we saw is about 100 countries submitted their plans covering about 76% of global emissions. So in that regard, there was a lot of progress. Countries like South Africa, China, the EU submitted, and a lot of countries across the African continent submitted their revised national plans.
You talk about water being a cornerstone of climate change. Do you mean water supplies, as in drinking water, or do you mean the water temperatures?
I think water supply. Because of these climate events that we are seeing, especially the extreme climate events, they make water supply unpredictable. Sometimes they promote pollution, especially climate change. So now what is key is the fact that water is actually a very good enabler for climate mitigation because then you bring resilience with water. So as you're solving climate change, you're also solving the water problem. So there is a marriage that actually happened in this COP that you can't look at them in isolation. So when you talk climate adaptation, water becomes a key enabler for that.
So COP was ending. As it was ending, the B20 was happening. And as it sort of ended, the G20 was starting. Was there much of a synergy? I mean, interestingly, I mean, there's quite a lot of synergy between Brazil and South Africa. Our societies are very similar. Our presidents are very similar. Was there a synergy between these two events?
I think this is what the fortunate event that happened. As COP30 was closing, there was a commitment around, it's called the Bagu to Belém roadmap to $1.3 trillion per annum. And then what that means is there's a commitment to facilitate climate funding towards developing countries. And then if you then look at B20, there was a work stream there or a task force looking at energy mix and just transition. And in it, one of their key priorities was exactly that, the mobilization of climate finance. So you start to see that marriage actually happened between COP30 and the B20. And then obviously it found its home into the G20 as well.
And the thing about the G20 is it's the economies that matter. And I don't mean to be rude to others, but it's the biggest economies in the world, the 20 biggest. And I mean, if you don't get them mobilized behind this, well, then nothing will happen.
Yes. I think you have to, because what is appreciated is that climate change requires a collective effort. So no one country can solve it. And there is support required from developed economies to help developing countries. So platforms like the B20, the G20 and COP actually provide a good platform for that discussions.
There'll be a COP next year.
Yes.
What do you expect to happen? So now, I mean, it's always the homework stage.
Yes.
What are you expecting to happen over the next year?
Yeah, so the COP next year is going to Turkey, and then the following year is going to Ethiopia. But I think the important things are two key items. One, climate finance, is going to continue to become a big topic, but also fossil fuels. There was one agreement that was never made at this COP is, what do you do about fossil fuels? Do you phase them down? Do you phase them out? Do you transition away? So that language wasn't clarified. But I think those two topics will be quite key going to the next COPs.
I mean, it wasn't that clear at the G20 either. Saudi Arabia is a member of the G20. So, I mean, there's quite a lot of really intricate, interesting international relations politics at play here.
Yes, there are, because if you can imagine, this type of decision also impact economic growth of countries. So it's quite important that any decision made is made with a holistic view of what impact it will have on the country itself. So you have countries that are rich in fossil fuels saying, allow us to still maximize these resources, whereas other countries that are developed are saying, no, let's transition. So I think you're trying to find that marriage between the two. However, there's an instrument that came up between COP and B20 and is transition finance, which is saying it's a financial instrument that funds decarbonization in these hard-to-abate sectors. So as we are trying to figure out and make them green, there is a way to decarbonize them actually now. And there was an announcement that was made between our parent company, First Rand, and British International Investment, where we managed to mobilize $150 million from the UK into the continent. So demonstrating that these type of conversations, yes, we haven't agreed, but there are parameters where we can start to mobilize funding. So that is another opportunity where we demonstrated that this can be done.
It's fascinating. There's so much happening. And in the meantime, you know, the number of solar panels being produced primarily in China is literally changing the world.
Correct. I think China has taken up this mantle very aggressively, and from the whole value chain, from the mining of the minerals all the way to the manufacturing. Even locally in South Africa as well, we have a lot of renewable energy playing, so both in the private and the public sector. But throughout the continent, you're starting to see the continent embracing this new technology and the fact that it's affordable.
Tsepo, thanks for coming in. Good to see you. Tsepo Nsane is a finance and ESG transactor at RMB, 17 minutes after 7.
Durbanville Hills pairs perfectly with sunsets, your favorite playlist, and your favorite people. Durbanville Hills pairs really well with your December Friendsmas party. It pairs perfectly with every story. And right now, when you buy any 2 bottles of Durbanville Hills from participating retailers, you could win a 5,000 Rand voucher. Durbanville Hills pairs perfectly with every story. Not for persons under the age of 18. T's and C's apply.
Betway's exclusive new games are taking the world by storm. Featuring massive Megaways jackpots. Take your shot on Cash and Riches, Wolf Blaze, Gallo Gold Brunos, and many more incredible experiences for you to choose from. You're guaranteed to find a new ultra fun favorite. Get way more only at Betway. Betway's licensed by the Mpumalanga Economic Regulator. No persons under the age of 18 are permitted to gamble. NRGP counseling line 0800 006 008. All events are fixed odds betting games.
Those trusty old shoes. There for your first move out of home. That marathon training that lasted a day. The quick runs to the store. The long nights out. Yeah, they've done the most for you. But with the Street Store, they can do even more for someone else. Visit thestreetstore.org to find out more about donating your pre-loved shoes and clothes to the world's first rent-free pop-up clothing store for the homeless. Donate before December 6, 2025.
The Money Show, Africa Business Focus.
Africa Business Focus is brought to you by Herbert Smith Freehills Kramer, a global legal powerhouse. It's 19 minutes after 7. Dr. Rutendo Ndingwi is here from Tribe Africa Advisory, author of the book Rumble in the Jungle Reloaded. How's it, Rutendo?
Very well, Stephen. Good to see you.
Thanks for coming in. Aubrey will be pleased to see you later.
He always is. He's always is.
I'm going to steal you back from his show. So we've seen, obviously, a lot of AI. A lot of people in Africa are looking, to use AI to improve their lives, but also to make more money. A lot of that AI is made by China. There's a bit of caution being urged here.
Yeah, a bit of caution. I mean, China, we know that it has got its advantages in terms of building to scale, but obviously it's your responsibility as a government or an industry to make sure that you get the quality that's in line with that. In this specific report, Stephen, it's the DeepSeek, which is the equivalent of ChatGPT. If you remember earlier on in the year, DeepSeek came on board, and there was in the New York Stock Exchange there was havoc that was created. Nvidia lost about I think it was $600 billion US in share value just because of that threat. DeepSeek is playing an active role in Africa. I think if it does work the way it is said it's supposed to work, Stephen, the cost of developing DeepSeek, according to DeepSeek, is about $6 million US. That's the amount of investment to make it clever and put in layman's terms, compared to ChatGPT, which is $100 million US. So it's supposed to be cost effective. They are investing significantly on the African market, where there's always been opportunity to scale and grow from a technology perspective. But they're not the only ones. Besides DeepSeek, the UAE, or the Middle East, have invested also in terms of technology, and also we know Cassava in partnership with some of the US firms. So a lot of investment happening on the continent, but DeepSeek taking extra, capitalizing on that opportunity as well.
Yeah, it's so interesting to see how it's all going to play out. No one really knows. Kenya, they're looking at investment-driven growth for their small and medium enterprises. I mean, they have over 7 million.
7 million.
That's a lot of one-person companies, people who are selling things. They're doing a lot with that.
To scare you even more, Stephen, Africa in itself, I think according to estimates, there are about 44 million SMEs on the continent that contributes plus or minus about 40% of Africa's GDP. But coming back to Kenya, Stephen, Kenya realizes, I mean, for any SME to scale, it's a big number, but the big challenge you have in Africa for SMEs to scale is two key things. One is financing, and the other is technology. We know from a Kenya perspective, huge accomplishments with regards to technology. We've seen with M-Pesa. But now they're focusing in terms of how can they create that environment that can make significant growth in terms of the economy. And so there's a big focus on the 7.4 million SMEs that are there. One of the key things that they've done, Stephen, as well, is that the government, because of the cutbacks that have happened because of USA, the NGOs, the ODA investment, they've realized that 90% of their businesses are playing in the SME space. So it's a huge population from a business perspective. And one of the other challenges that they have is that for an SME to get the required support in financing and capabilities to scale, between 100,000 to 100 million US dollars, the amount of money that is required, and it's not within their reach. So the government is sort of digging deep in terms of saying, how can we facilitate this huge volume of businesses that have got an impact on our economy to go to the next level? So that was an interesting point, and I think it just correlates across the continent, Stephen.
It's also about the sort of things that are put in the way. You know, these are not insiders to the economy. These are people hustling, and they hustle hard.
They hustle very hard, Stephen. And you know, if you look at other first world countries, and I was talking about Africa on average, and it's the same thing with Kenya, where about 42% of the continent's GDP relies on SMEs. But when you look at first world countries like the US, for example, it's only 5%. So there's a healthier balance. But that 5% carries quite a lot. So it's a lot of hustle. The volumes are there. The numbers are there. The challenge, Stephen, is we need to get these guys to scale, because when we're able to get our SMEs to scale through financing, through the right support from a technology perspective, it does take the country and the continent forward. So the government of Kenya has got a lot of work to do. And we also know behind this, there's still the political dynamics of Kenya, which we've highlighted a lot on this show. But we'll see how it goes. But at the moment, it's a primary focus for the government in terms of scaling up these 7.4 million businesses in the SME space in Kenya.
And then in Morocco, the Dakhla port development, obviously there'll be quite a lot of hope that that'll have a big impact.
Dakhla, and you said it quite well, Stephen. You sound as if you're in Morocco there. And I think it's all the
Don't tell our government.
But Morocco, as you know, Stephen, is going to be hosting the 2027 World Cup. So a lot of money is going into infrastructure. But I think the reason I like this story, I mean, we came out of the 2010 Soccer World Cup, and there was a big question, did we get return on investment? Do we make strategic decisions? They've pumped in, and this is the Moroccan government, about 1.6 billion US dollars into the port there. And the prime focus of this is obviously they want to make it one of the leading ports. So it's not just a port to facilitate infrastructure to build the stadiums, but obviously with their vicinity to Europe, they're seeing a lot of opportunity in terms of trade. They're also seeing with the trade coming from Mali, Burkina Faso, so all those Niger, all those Sahel regions, it's expected this investment will not only translate obviously into infrastructure growth, but between 1,800 to 20,000 jobs will be created in the ecosystem of things. So that's a positive thing. I think also another key point to highlight, Steve, is that the players that are involved with this, one of the key players is a company called Ornx, ORNX, and it's a consortium between the USA, Spain, and Germany. And there's another also consortium between Abu Dhabi and Spain that are all participating. So Morocco, again, I think it's positioned itself quite well to be a big infrastructure player on the continent. And they want to have the biggest port in Africa. I think Senegal is doing the same thing. They've got DP World investing, and Djibouti's done a lot. So it's good to get these stories of infrastructure, because when you talk of the AFCFTA, which was a highlighted G20, which I'm sure, Stephen, you're G20'd out, all of this helps the continent move in the right way in terms of the direction we want to go.
And then African nations have joined a coalition of levying taxes on luxury air travel.
Bearing in mind, and look, the funny thing about this, it's the right decision. Will it make the right impact? So there are 13 countries, mostly from the global south, that have said, guys, we want to penalize people with regards to luxury travel, private jets. The countries that are in the 13 from Africa already was Djibouti, Nigeria, South Sudan, and the newest members are Kenya, Benin, and Sierra Leone. The intention, absolutely positive. The reality is, though, that collectively Africa contributes 3% of the carbon footprint in the world, and the most the country alone that contributes the most is actually the USA. So the question is, as much as it's a noble idea, will it make a dent? And the reality it won't. But hopefully we'll lead the way and others will follow. But whether that happens or not, that will be another thing to see.
I'm happy to pay it for my private jet. And then this story about an emerald. It says here 300 kilograms. Ready?
300 kilograms.
And it was found by?
It was found by the new president or the new leader of Madagascar. As we know, Madagascar recently had a coup d'etat. I think it was President Angelina, who was pushed out. And one of the reasons where the young people were complaining about shortage of essentials, money for funding for public utilities, etc., etc. He walks into the new presidential place and he finds a 300 kilogram piece of rock, of emerald rock. It's valued at $80 per gram. So to cut a long story short, Stephen, that's $24 million that was left by the former president.
Back in his cupboard or something?
Back in his cupboard. And why the former president just didn't put it in the back of his bakkie and drive off, we don't know. But it's an interesting story. Apparently it's going to be auctioned for the good of the country, and plus or minus $24 million should be injected to the fiscus. Whether that happens or not, that's another story, but it's an interesting story that emeralds in Madagascar, in terms of this date, time, and all that's happening around that.
What's that old Russian line? Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Isn't that what they say?
That's what they say.
Dr. Rotindo Ndingi, so good to see you. Founding Director at Tribe Africa Advisory. Celebrating a decade in South Africa, global law firm Herbert Smith Freehills Kramer is committed to staying and growing on the African continent. The firm's reach is global, with 2,700 lawyers across 26 offices, bringing together local and international knowledge and insights to offer comprehensive legal services that meet your needs. Trust Herbert Smith Freehills Kramer for exceptional results in the transactions and disputes that matter most to your business. Visit hsfkramer.com for more info.
Coming up,
The Aubrey Masango Show
on 702
and Cape Talk.
Aubrey, how's it? Shake hands with Rotindo on your own show.
I'm standing up to show respect for Aubrey.
Can you believe it? Let's talk about 300-gram emeralds in offices and bakkies. Really?
Oh.
You boys, eh? I'm just worried about you guys.
It's the money show, but what's coming
Let's talk
up?
about what's happening on the show this evening. Claire Thompson, an attorney in private practice, talks to us about the legal implications of paternity test results. Apparently, there are certain issues we need to be aware of in that space.
There's an emerald that's questioning its paternity.
And then in the second hour of the show, in our entrepreneurship feature, we talk about emotional intelligence as a skill to make us better leaders. And then, of course, in the third hour of the show, I'm told that there is a critical shortage of accountants in this country, but they now have to contend with being able to perform their duties using AI. So we've got a dual problem in that we've got to marry those two ideas together and produce the best thing for South Africa. And then, of course, in the final hour of the show, it's an open line, and that's the show this evening.
Aubrey Masango, thanks. Looking forward to it. It's just gone 7:30. Warren Ingram is next. Your questions for him. First, the latest eyewitness news. Zingisa, good evening. And we're looking at the Hawks and the situation at Katie Molefe's home.
Well, Stephen, it seems members of the Hawks Serious Organised Crime Division disputed their involvement in alleged interference during the arrest of Katiso Katie Molefe. 3 senior DPCI officials, including Gauteng's DPCI head, testified before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry today. Their testimony centered around the raid at the luxury mansion of Molefe in December. Molefe was arrested by members of the PKTT for the murder of Vereniging engineer Ahmad Swart. Oren Singh reports.
Previous testimony suggested possible interference by members of the Hawks during a clandestine operation to arrest Katiso Katie Molefe. But this was disputed by members of the Hawks who testified before the Madlanga Commission today. Warrant Officer Paul Hadebe says they simply acted on instruction to verify who was conducting the operation.
Our instructions was that to find out if really there's members from the Hawks that are at Sentin that are conducting an operation.
Captain Dale Norky says they were only at the scene for a few minutes.
We didn't spend more than 15 minutes.
Gauteng Hawks head Ibrahim Kadwa says the verification was important because they have in the past dealt with people impersonating Hawks officials.
We feel quite a lot of situations where there are people who are bogus.
Kadwa instructed members from the Serious Organised Crime Unit to verify the operation following queries from former Hawks head Godfrey Labia. Oren Singh, Eyewitness News.
Deputy President Paul Mashatile says he believes public-private partnerships to assist with water projects are having the desired effect. Mashatile says these partnerships are necessary to assist with the technical skills that government does not have. Answering questions in the National Council of Provinces today, Mashatile said government is taking systemic steps through its water task team to deal with the widespread problems that are hindering the provision of water to many communities.
Through the water task team, we are tackling water security challenges by improving infrastructure, reforming institutions, and expediting project management in a coordinated approach.
But the DA's Paul Swart has slammed government for not doing more to take criminal action against municipal officials who are colluding with companies which provide water tankers. Mashatile says because of the vandalism of infrastructure, municipalities are left with little choice but to seek alternative ways to provide water.
Government is aware of and is responding to corruption and criminality associated with water tanker operations. In this regard, National Treasury has issued a circular cautioning municipalities against long-term reliance on water tankers.
And George residents in the Southern Cape are urged to continue using water sparingly this festive season as dam levels remain low. The Garden Route Dam, George's primary water source, is currently at a little over 50% storage capacity. The municipality says despite recording 12 millimeters of rain last week, it was not enough to stabilize dam levels or offset the city's rising water demand. Here's the municipality's Ntobeko Maqwengwe.
Our water resources remain under pressure and every drop truly counts. The executive mayor of George, Alderman Brown Johnson, has called the community to pull together, saying, "This is a critical time for George. Our dam levels are dropping and demand is increasing."
With a combination of reduced rainfall and increasing population activity during December and January, the municipality emphasizes the importance of consistent water-saving behavior.
He urges every household, businesses, visitors to use water responsibly. Saving water now is our shared responsibility to secure Georgia's future.
A partly cloudy Wednesday is in store for Gauteng tomorrow with isolated showers and thundershowers expected. Lows of between 10 and 16 degrees and highs of between 25 and 27. Cape Town will be partly cloudy at a low of 19 and a high of 28. The top story on Eyewitness News. Members of the Hawks Serious Organised Crime Division disputed their involvement in an alleged interference during the arrest of Katiso Katie Molefe.
You are not dreaming. You are repeating. Insurance, pineapple. Insurance, pineapple. Insurance, Pineapple. Insurance. Pineapple. Pineapple FSP 48650 is underwritten by Omart Insure Limited, a licensed non-life insurer and authorized FSP.
Corporates That Care promotes and encourages corporate leaders and all citizens to walk the talk for a better South Africa. Catch Corporates That Care this Wednesday at 10 to 9, featuring Total Energies. Their corporate affairs and CSI manager, Talita Sachane, will be in conversation with Bongani Bingwa. Join us every Wednesday as we highlight the efforts of companies and brands dedicated to building our country. Corporates That Care is a Prime Media Cares initiative with 702 and Prime Media Outdoor. 702, let's walk the talk and make a difference together.
Hey, no longer feeling like the man you used to be?
The man who introduces himself and people say, I know.
The fact is, 95% of men with low testosterone go untreated.
Vitamin high-performance supplements for men helps recharge energy, regain lean muscle, and reload performance. Available at all good pharmacies and vitalamin.co.za.
Vitalamin.
Don't get older, get better.
The Money Show.
Personal Finance with Warren Ingram.
The Personal Finance feature is brought to you by Sanlam Corporate. They take employee benefits personally because when you care, everyone benefits. Sanlam Corporate. 23 minutes now to 8. Well, occasionally we go through a period where there's a lot of good news. And very occasionally we go through a period where there's a lot of good news and Warren Ingram is live and in our studio in person. He's a certified financial planner at Galileo Capital, and here he is. Warren, it's wonderful to see you. Good evening.
So good to be in studio in nice kind of rainy Joburg. It's wonderful.
You're taking refuge from the heat of the Western Cape. Got a jersey on and everything to rub it in.
I'm not used to this.
Okay, we're going through some good times. The question tonight is, how do you capitalize on that? And I suppose it's fair to say that in some ways we're so used to kind of negative news, which is often what news is for various reasons, that it's quite strange to sort of think that actually some things are going very well.
And I don't think we necessarily stop and take stock of we've arrived here. Can we remind ourselves where we were and what we were not complaining about, but what were we worried about 1, 3, 5, 7 years ago? And I'm just thinking, when last did you sit around the braai or the dinner table complaining about load shedding?
No.
We don't do it anymore. And the unemployment rates is rising, and the economy is not doing anything, and the country is being badly managed, etc., etc. And we're ingrained to do that anyway, but we should stop and just take a second to look where we are. And for me, a couple of things happened. We gave it attention. We've given it actually attention on this show, but I'm not sure as a country we gave it enough attention. And so things like getting off the grey list. I've had so many people say to me, oh, well, we shouldn't have been on it in the first place. Of course, that's true. But we're off it. And we did it not necessarily in record time, but actually one of the quickest turnarounds. And then you add to the fact that we're starting to balance the books as a country. When you talk about an individual and you say, please stop spending more than you earn every month. Well, we were doing that very successfully as a country. We were spending a lot more than we were earning. We actually now are spending less than we're earning when you ignore the interest cost. When you add the interest cost, it's not such a pretty picture. But that's called a primary surplus. We're making a primary surplus again, so it's now the second time, and I think we're on track to do it for the third time. Then we get to this blessed budget. And firstly, the budget goes through without a fight.
Yeah.
It happened. If there was fighting, you and I didn't hear about it. It wasn't splashed all over the news. Maybe you heard about it. I didn't hear about it. Seems to me largely a consensus, like that actually our government is pulling in a direction, and it's what I would call a responsible direction. Again, we're spending less than we're earning. We're allocating money correctly, more so as time goes on, and we add into something into that budget of, by the way, we actually think this 3% inflation target is a good thing. Almost like a by-the-by thing.
Yes.
There was a bit of a spat, and now there's not. Then we get Standard & Poor's saying, oh, we think you're doing a really good job. Actually, we're going to upgrade you. So we're still below junk, but we're going to upgrade you. And we think that the momentum for that upgrade is positive. In other words, there is room for more upgrades in the very near future. All of this has happened in a reasonably short space of time. all of it is incredibly positive.
It's also all about momentum, right? It's not about the numbers, it's about the trend, the direction that you're moving in.
Yeah, I think I couldn't remember if I mentioned about unemployment. Unemployment is slightly less bad.
Yeah.
Another positive thing. So what we've got now is that kind of stone that's rolling down the hill. All that's happened is it's fractionally moved. It's got momentum. And what we need to know is momentum has worked against us for a very long period of time. Almost kind of 2007 was the last time we had really good economic news. Now we're having it again. And if you just keep doing the right things, that momentum starts to build. And I think that's where we are now. And it's not just you and I looking at this and going, oh, that's okay. The rest of the world looks at that and goes, ratings agencies, they're not the most exciting people, right? Like they're not there looking at the positive outcome. They're looking at what could go wrong. And they're saying we're doing things well. Things are going well and should carry on. That for me is very good news.
There's a big issue around the rand and the new inflation target of 3%. Why is that so important? Because it keeps the rand at a certain level and basically keeps it stronger?
It does. Just to be clear, like the intent is not to manage the rand.
Yeah.
The intent is the country and the people that manage the books of our country, so the Reserve Bank and our Treasury, are saying we are showing the world that we are fiscally disciplined, that we are actually restrained in our spending, and that we can control inflation. If we do that, one of the things that causes the rand to get weaker against the dollar, for example, is if our inflation rate has been 6% for a long period of time, and theirs has been 2% for a long period of time, that difference, that 4% difference will be the amount that the rand will weaken against the dollar. When you ignore all the politics and all the other things that could go wrong, that would be a guarantee. So if we get to 3% and they seem to be struggling to break 3%, that means we're both at 3%. That's one thing that keeps the rand at a level to the dollar. We'll still weaken because we're a small economy, politics are not great and all those things. But a strong rand means we don't import inflation with oil, with food, and that's a big issue. So we import a lot of petrol. We don't have our own. And we import a lot of food, surprisingly. And those things cause inflation. So if you're paying in dollars for those things and the rand is now stable against the dollar, you don't have as much inflation. Again, positive news.
Okay, it's 18 minutes now to 8 the time. You know the number, 011 883 0702 021 446 0567 and voice notes on 072 702 1702. Your questions for Warren Ingram tonight. That's all the good news that's happening. How you make money from it. And the first thing, I just want to check this, Warren, because I know you'll know the answer. We are now going to have lower inflation, which I presume means that over time, so if we say over the next 20 years, we should have lower interest rates, which I'm hoping means that I would pay a lot less interest on a bond that I started now than I started 20 years ago.
Yeah. So the reason we have high interest rates right now is it's the main tool and almost the only tool that the Reserve Bank has to control inflation. If inflation's under control, that means the Reserve Bank can start to cut interest rates. If they cut interest rates, that means that you and I pay less on our debts. It also means the whole country pays less on its debts because we as a country, we issue a government bond. We have to be attractive to everybody, South African and global investors, to offer them a good interest rate above inflation. So if our inflation rate is low, and that means instead of issuing a bond at 11%, we might issue it at 8%. It's still a very attractive rate for investors above inflation. But you and I are spending less on debt, which means hopefully that we pay our debts down, and that means that we've got more money to spend on the economy, in the economy. So on building houses, all of those things. Lower interest rates are extremely positive for the property market, for every individual who owns a property or wants to own a property. Also for, unfortunately, things like extra spending. So now people will spend more on the things that they don't really need, but it's actually positive for the economy if we're not spending it on useless things. So we can actually create a positive economic spiral that causes better unemployment. You get the picture.
Okay, so then all of these things mean that there would be quite a lot of positive news over the long term because this is where the long term matters. But it's good news for businesses too if they want to borrow money to expand.
Yeah. So when you're paying 10 or 11% a year to grow your factory or to build a new building, 10 or 11% a year, most businesses would be thrilled to grow their whole business by, let's say, 15% a year. When you're giving away most of that just in interest, it just doesn't create scope to really invest properly. But if you're borrowing at 8%, it creates more scope to actually grow and grow. And that's what we want. We want businesses to grow so they employ more people. So lower interest rates caused by controlled inflation have a huge economic impact, but not tomorrow. So it's something that sustainably, incrementally causes the tide to turn.
You spoke about ratings agencies. Now, presumably they see this. If they then give us another, and going into this with S&P Global, they gave us the upgrade. The others haven't yet. But there was a lot of speculation. They didn't give us one now. They would give us one next year.
Yeah.
So they gave us one now. That doesn't necessarily mean they'll give us another one next year, but the others will sit up and take notice of that. What happens then if they all follow and we start slowly getting rated up?
Let's say, which is not unrealistic. I'm not saying we'll jump from 3 levels or 2 levels below junk to immediately in February. Now we're at investment grade. But that path to getting to investment grade is much shorter now than it was in the past. If we get to investment grade, that means we get onto global bond market indices, we get onto global stock market indices again, et cetera, et cetera. So now we start to attract money simply because of momentum. Back to the M word again. Momentum is in our favor here. So we get onto a whole lot of radars of the bond fund managers as well. And just global investors would be looking at this and saying, okay, you're investment grade. So if I'm a global manager and I've got to allocate money to places, I don't really get fired when I allocate money to an investment grade country. Allocate money to a junk status country and it doesn't go well, I get fired. So your risk appetite improves when you're buying investment grade countries. There's a lot of human behavior behind this. And then global businesses would be saying, okay, we can build factories there. We can build our operations down there as well. So investment grade for us is a huge thing. Like that's the thing we're really aiming for.
Okay. I mean, I remember the terrible headlines, South Africa now junk, when it all happened in 2017 and 2015 in December and all of that. All of this then, if we get some economic growth, it starts to spiral. What happens then? I mean, that obviously does things for the JSE, which is having a record time, even though a lot of the stocks that are doing very well are kind of earning money in dollars and are related to gold.
Yeah, so let's talk about the growth. Everybody's kind of forecasting that the country generates 0.9 or 1.1% economic growth. They call it GDP growth. If we get something slightly faster than that, where the good news does compound slightly, that means we start to absorb more and more people who are unemployed into the employment sector. Our population growth is not much more than 1 or 2%. So if you're actually absorbing people into the employment, where you're growing employment faster than your population is growing, all of a sudden, the whole country gets a little bit richer per person. So that's GDP per capita. That's the jargon. That is the golden, like the holy grail of everything. You want to get to that point where you start to make everybody feel a bit richer every day and that they see hope. What we know is if you have hope, all of a sudden you start to invest better and you do look at the long term. You do build a house. You do build a business. You do educate your kids in the country. So you break that really bad spiral that we might be coming out of now.
And that will also partly come over time because of a lower inflation target, because the interest rates in the end will be lower.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't appreciate, I had to spend some time with bond managers to understand that this inflation target, almost like the announcement of it, on its own wasn't something, but now the Treasury is agreeing and the Reserve Bank agreeing, and actually that people see we're sticking to it in our budgets and the way we're doing things, means that immediately, almost the very next day, when we issue new bonds or we're refinancing as a country, we're paying less interest already. So it had a very positive impact. We are not going to spend as much on interest as we have in the past, which means we can pay down our debt faster, which hopefully means we can invest as a country in more infrastructure, the things that create jobs.
Speaking to Warren Ingram tonight, a certified financial planner at Galileo Capital. There's a question as well, and it's asked, and it says, Stephen, I'm changing jobs in the next month, so I have some money in my Provident Fund. I can draw a chunk of it as a resignation benefit. I have some credit card debt that I would like to settle. Should I use my Provident Fund money to settle this debt? Is from Tony. Tony, we'll have an answer for you in just a moment.
Hey, Chummy. Sorry I missed your call. I just got back from Dis-Chem where I was doing my Christmas shopping, spoiling the fam, when I spot these signs about better rewards. Turns out you can unlock special promo prices just by being a member. So obvious, I'm in. Long story short, I loaded my trolley with all the gifts and goodies and headed to the till. My slip, it just kept going and going. And my savings, I could literally see the difference. It's true. My till slip never looked better. You should better reward yourself too, hey? Okay, friend, bye.
Durbanville Hills is the wine that pairs perfectly with slow summer evenings, listening to your favorite playlists with all your special people in all your favorite spaces. It pairs perfectly with your December Friendsmas dinner or Sunday lunch. It's the wine that pairs perfectly with your story. This summer, treat yourself to any 2 bottles of delicious, award-winning Durbanville Hills from participating retailers, and you could win a 5,000 Rand gift voucher from Durbanville Hills. Not for persons under the age of 18. T's and C's apply.
Dashing through the roads to get to Chamberlain. Gifts and tools galore and super savings, yay! Keep your garden bright and green, pools sparkling clean, paints and lights and tents and brides, oh, everything you need. Visit Chamberlain between 20 November and 4 January for expert advice, friendly festive service and a wide range of products. 10% off paint mixing on Finest 1903, Dulux, Pluscon and Chamber Value paint. And free pool water testing. Chamberlain, famous for hardware since 1903.
The Money Show, Stephen Grootes, is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud host of the Africa Impact Matters series podcast. ABSA is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
The Money Show.
Personal Finance with Warren Ingram.
Well, your questions for Warren Ingram tonight. John, I do see your call. We'll be with you in just a moment. First, Warren, Tony's asking, I'm changing jobs, have some money in my Provident Fund. I can draw a chunk of it as a resignation benefit. I have some credit card debt. Should I use my Provident Fund money to settle the debt?
I really don't like that as an option. I think, you do that when you've just run out of all other runway. So when you're cancelling or taking money out of your Provident Fund, you're paying big taxes on that. So you're already going backwards, and those taxes are probably higher than what the interest is that you'd pay. And all the growth that would have been in your Provident Fund growing tax-free, now you lose that. So you lose the tax-free growth and you pay a lump sum tax. So I think unless you're going to lose all your assets because you're going to be foreclosed or something, they're going to bankrupt you, the credit card company. If you can find another way, please do that.
Okay, so just keep the money in the Provident Fund, Tony. Over the longer term, it'll be worthwhile. All right, John on the line from Craighall Park. John, good evening. What's your question? Go for it.
Yeah, good evening. I've heard all of the advantages of a lower interest rate. What is the disadvantage, or why don't they set the inflation target as 0?
It's a great question, eh?
At 0.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks, John. He's going to listen on the radio, Warren. Yeah.
John, your example is probably Japan, actually, because you do want a little bit of inflation because it's a sign of a growing economy. When you have 0 inflation, you open the option for deflation, where for example, things constantly get cheaper. So that sounds like an amazing thing. But if things are getting cheaper, it means companies are making less money. It means they've got less money to pay salaries. They've got less money to invest in the country, the company. Everything goes south. So you actually want a little bit of inflation, but it needs to be under control and it needs to be reasonably small and reasonably stable. Then all of a sudden you get this positive spiral. But a 0 inflation rate, I know it sounds good for most of us who don't want our food prices to get higher, but actually you want a sign of growth. You want things to get better and bigger. And I'm talking about economics now. And so a little bit of inflation is kind of your perfect point. 2 or 3% is ideal. That's what most of the good developed countries have.
You actually have deflation in South Africa in some goods. So some appliances, bicycles, for example, nice bicycles. If you buy them now, they're cheaper than they were 10 years ago. But that also means that if, for example, a bicycle is going to be cheaper next year, you're not going to buy it now, you're going to buy it next year, which means there's less economic activity.
And imagine that on a very large scale where you're a business that says, well, we need to buy 100 million rands worth of machines if we just wait.
Yeah.
It stalls.
The other thing that I suppose we need to just talk about is that there is a short-term pain to a lower inflation target because interest rates will be slightly higher for slightly longer.
Yeah, and so that is like we're taking our medicine. We have been taking our medicine anyway. We're taking our medicine now, but what the hope is 1 or 2 or 3 years from now, we're seeing a very positive picture. So it does send, again, momentum and a signal. It sends an incredibly good signal, but we need to let it unfold.
Okay. We do need, with all of this good news, and let's just go back to that main theme, you do need to maintain a balance, right?
Yeah, I kind of want to highlight to people, we've heard these comments out there like, a couple of years ago, cash out all of your South African stuff, send everything overseas. So that was the very opposite of the conversation we're having today. And if you think about that, the JSE in dollar terms, has been one of the very best stock markets in the world. And so that pain of people who've sent all their money out, they're suffering now. And equally, they sent it out probably at 19 to the dollar, and we're sitting at 17 something to the dollar. That's all bad news. So I mean, I think I'm highlighting this to say you always need to. I know you always tease me about diversification, but this is it, right? We're living it now. We're seeing the benefit of having money in South Africa and overseas. So I'm not saying sell all your overseas investments, bring everything back to South Africa, but if you've been underinvested in SA and you need to get your balance right, think about that actually interest rates are coming down in South Africa. Economy's still going to grow. The JSE is still going to do well outside of just the dollar-earning commodities businesses. There is scope for growth. So make sure that balance is right, because it can be a very profitable decision for the next 5 or so years. And so that's all we can kind of look at the moment. And if that positive spiral carries on, who knows? So I'm not saying bring everything back to South Africa. Equally, I never said send everything out. And I think we've got to make sure we use this as an opportunity to get that balance.
So I mean, this could be a moment if you have taken everything out, you want to get back in kind of now. Not all of it, obviously, but quite a lot of it, or some of it. And you also want to be able to say, you also want to sort of know exactly, well, it's a complicated thing, but you don't know what's going to happen. But you do need to take cognizance of the change in momentum.
Yeah, and understand that that's going to impact, for example, the bond market. It's going to impact the property market. We all know, like Joburg has had a very tough time from a property point of view. I'm not predicting that it's now just turned and everything's going to be better, but there are early signs, and if the momentum is positive, and you were sitting on the sideline saying, I need to buy in Joburg, I need to buy the family home. Think about it now. Get that balance of your assets correct. As you say, if you need to bring in some money because you're out of balance, get that right. Equally, don't stop sending money out if you're a bit low on your overseas side just because things are going okay at the moment. We don't know what's going to happen in 3 years' time. We don't have that crystal ball, but we need to be ready to benefit from all sides of the story.
I've had people tell me that Joburg's off the bottom for the last year, which I find very funny. There's also a sense of a mood, right? If things start to look good, and government is sending quite a big signal with an inflation target, with other things, that also means people invest, and that also means that we get a bit more encouraged to keep some money here, to put more money in, things like that. And that sentiment, and Adrian Gore spoke a lot about it, that sentiment in the economy is really important.
Yeah, and it's interesting you talk about Adrian Gore. So, I mean, he's been one of the people beating the positive drum for a while. And I think because he was positive for so long, maybe he kind of became muted by people saying, oh, you always say that, you're always positive. But we're hearing more and more positive voices from people that maybe weren't so positive in the past. So positive sentiment, again, it's a momentum thing. You get people to look at the future and say, actually, South Africa has a future. That's important.
Warren Ingram, it's great to see you as a refugee from the heat in the Western Cape. I really do appreciate it. And such an interesting topic, actually, because there really is quite a lot of good news around at the moment. You need to make the best of it, particularly when you're investing. Decision makers like yourself help the South African workforce plan beyond payday. The Sanlam Umbrella Fund gives employees a clear path from payslip to pension with free retirement benefits, consulting, and other value-added benefits. You get support at every step. They get dignity in retirement. That's care in action. And when you care, everyone benefits. Partner with Sanlam Corporate by visiting sanlamcorporate.co.za. Build South Africa's age of confidence together.
The Money Show, Stephen Grootes, is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud host of the Africa Impact Matters series podcast. ABSA is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Well, it does look like U.S. markets are finally turning positive. They had a little bit of a rocky start. The Dow Jones is up 1.22%. The Nasdaq is up 0.46%. The S&P 500 is up 0.76%. Two things seem to be driving that. One is the kind of slight return to AI stocks, if I can call it that. The other, once again in the States, it's all about this, is will there be another interest rate cut in December or not? And all of that becomes incredibly political as well in the United States. And in fact, a case against one of the Federal Reserve members of the committee, Janet Cook, was thrown out yesterday by the judge, who said that the district attorney had not been appointed properly, and it was obviously been appointed by the Trump administration simply to sort of serve those interests. So lots of developments in the United States. We'll be back tomorrow. Good evening. It's 8 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good evening, I'm Zingisa Cherwa. Members of the Hawks Serious Organized Crime Division disputed their involvement in alleged interference during the arrest of Katiso Katie Molefe. 3 senior DPCI officials, including the Gauteng's DPCI head, testified before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry today. Their testimony centered around the raid at the luxury mansion of Molefe